Wait, are you hearing me? I'm going to start the presentation. Okay, Alisina, you are here now.
Yes, sir. Good evening. I'm here.
Okay, I'm going to present the paper. Okay, I'm going to share the paper and present you the slides. Faith, you are also here, I think. Abdul Kader also here, and I'm waiting one more. Elisabetta. Okay, I'm sharing the file. Okay, you see the elasticity now. Okay, we are going to the elasticity, to the second part of the elasticity in micro managerial. Do you have any question? Do you have any question? Abdul, Fayed, and Ali, you have any question?
As for me, no problem.
Not yet, sir, but I'll follow the class recordings and also the presentations. If I have any question, I will let you know.
Okay, I'm going to present the second part of the elasticity today. Okay, factors which affects the determine price elasticity of demand. We have already exercised last lecture the price elasticity of demand. We did some interpretations, and today we are going to extend the elasticity to supply and some other cross price elasticities. Demand tend to be more price elastic when there are good substitutes for the good. Demand tends to be more price elastic when consumer expenditure in that good is large, and demand tend to be less price elastic when consumers consider the good as a negative. Okay, when demand tend to be less price elastic when consumers consider the good as necessity. Therefore, when you are going to look to this important information, you will little bit approach to this elasticity problem, which is directly related with the goods that we are going to consume, whether it is necessary foodstuff, interior goods, luxurious goods. Um, in in general, for the elasticity, where we are going to use for the other elasticities, whether the price of something is changed to affect the demand of the others, is going to represent delta y to delta x, and this is then delta y to delta x, delta y to delta y to y divided to y will be divided to the delta x to x, and then this will then upside down delta y to delta x. Okay. Sorry, because there is a problem with the people continuously interrupting me. Elisabetta not able to attend, I think, today. I don't know why. Okay. Then delta y over delta x multiplied with x over y. Then price elasticity of supply then will be then as delta q or delta presentation or percentage of the qs, which is the last supply quantity demanded or offered, will be subtracted from the former supply, and this is then divided to the price of the last product or last period, will be subtracted from the former period. And this is then also can be represented as delta QS divided to QS, which is T minus 1, is the former price or former quantity produced, and delta P over P. Again, delta P is the differentiation of the prices between these two periods and will be divided to the price in the former period. And when you're going to upside down this equation, you know the mathematics, I think, delta QS divided to delta P multiplied with P former price divided to the QS former quantity. Then the price elasticity of demand is also introduced to you. Then delta Q or delta Q over Q divided to delta P over P, which is negative because there's the inverse relationship, and delta Q over delta P multiplied with P over Q. Then is given to you the income elasticity of demand and measures degree of shift of demand curve as income changes. This is then the income affected price elasticity or demand elasticity, delta QD divided to the differentiation of the income. And this will then represent also in the more comprehensive form, delta QD divided to delta QD, divided to delta I to I, so-called the disposable income in the former period. And delta QD, which is the differentiation of the demand in these two periods, will be divided to the income differentiation, and this will then multiplied with the I, so-called the disposable income in the former period, divided to the disposable, amount of the demand in the last period. The cross price elasticity is also introduced to you. Measures degree of shifts of demand curve when the price of another good changes. When you are buying some, let's say, Cadbury, and the price of the Cadbury is increased, then you will then is question here whether giving up some Cadbury chocolate consumption and buying some Milo, some Milo chocolate. Chocolate is very popular in the African countries, then how it is affecting and changing, whether the price of something is changed, how it is affecting the other goods consumption. Therefore, delta QD is the price, is the quantity of any X product will be divided to the price of the others, and delta QD over QD divided to delta P over P0, which is the initial price, and delta QD over delta P multiplied with P0 and QD, which are the initial price and quantity, will be multiplied again. The cross price elasticity of demand then is given here with the example and also with the definitions. Cross price elasticity or cross elasticity of demand is the measures the percentage change in the quantity demand for goods after the change in the price of the another. As I mentioned to you, if the quantity of the price of the Cadbury chocolate is increased, what will be the Milo production or consumption? Therefore, cross price elasticity is then percentage change in the quantity demanded for the good A will be divided to the change in the or delta changes in the price of the good B, and cross price elasticity of demand for coffee to tea. Then, for example, if there is an increase in the price of tea by 10% and the quantity demand of coffee increased by 2%, then the XED, so-called the cross price elasticity, will be then 0.2, because we are going to put the equation as it is given here. Change in the quantity will be divided to change in the price, which means you are going to divide this 2% to 10. Okay. The substitute goods. For goods which are substitutes, we expect to see a positive cross. I prefer to use this because this is better, I think, for you, isn't it? You are able to see this?
Yes,
Are you able to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think it is better than we can read it better. Okay, substitute goods. For goods which are substitutes, we expect to see a positive cross price elasticity or cross elasticity of demand. If the price of Asta bread or any X bread, people will buy more of an alternative such as Mother's Pride bread. Weak substitution like tea and coffee will have a low cross price elasticity demand. An alternative brand of chocolate, example Mars to Cadbury, quite similar, so will have a high cross price. Therefore, if you have the similarities or similar product consumption or preferences, then there is a high cross price elasticity. If it is tea and coffee or some other kind of product which is not similarly which cannot be substituted easily, then the cross price elasticity is low. The complement goods such as CD and CD player, these are goods which are used together. Therefore, the cross price elasticity of demand is negative. If the price of one goes up, you will buy less of both goods. Therefore, if the price of the CD player goes up, then you will give up buying more CD or vice versa. For example, if the price of the DVD player goes down, you will buy more DVD players, and so also there will be an increase in demand for the DVD discs. If the price of the Samsung mobile phones goes down, we will buy also more Samsung related phones applications. Therefore, it is preferred. And the complement goods have a negative cross price elasticity. As the price of one good increases, the demand for the second good decreases. This is complement because, and substitute goods, complement as a CD and CD player, and substitute goods have positive cross price elasticity. As the price of one good increases, the demand for the other goods also increase. This is the substitution effect. And independent goods have a cross price elasticity of 0. As the price of one good increases, the demand for the second good is unchanged. Then substitute a good with a positive cross price elasticity or demand, meaning the goods demand is increased when the price of another is increased. This is substitution effect. And complement a good with a negative cross price elasticity of demand, meaning the goods demand is increased when the price of another good is decreased. Then the coefficient elasticity can be then represented as the coefficient of elasticity is defined as the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price. Therefore, the quantity is going to be divided to the price. As you see, delta Q over QT minus 1 divided to the delta P, PT minus 1, which is the initial price. The first step is to find percentage changes. The percentage change in any variable X is then usually defined as the coefficient of elasticity, X new minus X old divided to X old. This will then gives you the coefficient, where X new is new value of X and X old is the old value of X. The example is given here. If the price increased from $10 to $12, the percentage change as usually defined would be 12 minus 10 divided to 10, then 2 over 10 is 20%, which is 0.20. If at the same price or same time the quantity demanded fell from 30 to 20 items, the percentage change in quantity demanded, again using the usual definition of percentage, would be then 20 minus 30 divided to 30 is then minus 10 divided to 30, or minus 33% is the answer. And if we use the usual percentage change formula in our calculation of elasticity, we would arrive at the coefficient of elasticity of minus 33 divided to 20 minus 1.67, which is the expected outcome. The midpoint is also used, as I mentioned to you. Now we are not going to use the old in the denominator, and we are using the average, which means you are going to collect both new and old and divide 2. The midpoint formula makes only one change to the calculation of percentages. Rather than dividing the old value of X, it divides the average value that we define the midpoint percentage change as X new minus X old divided to X average, where X average is the sum of the old and new values divided by 2, which will give you the average. Implementing this is the straightforward. In our previous example, the percentage change in price calculated by the midpoint formula will be 12 minus 10 divided to 11, which is 12 plus 10 is 22 divided 2, then will be 11. This is then the midpoint, and is then 2 divided to 11 will then give you 18.2%, since the average price is 11. The percentage change in quantity calculated by the midpoint formula will be then again 20 minus, because we are using the price changes and quantity changes using the midpoint again. And for the quantity, we are going to use 20 minus 30. The former example we are using, of course, dividing to 25. Then 10 minus 10 divided to 25 will then gives you minus 40%. Since the average quantity is 25, then the coefficient elasticity calculated by the midpoint formula is 40 minus 40, sorry, divided to 18.2, which gives you minus 2.2. As you see, it is almost similar to this 1.60. It is above, isn't it? Then this is elastic, expected elastic. If it is between 0 and 1, is inelastic. Then, yes, please. Yes. I'm listening. You
just I see slide number 9. I don't know. Another slide? No.
9. This one. You stuck on it. You stuck here.
Okay, sir.
It didn't work. It didn't go. You want me to go to the old version? It doesn't work. It doesn't change the slides. You mean?
It's
your connection is not good, I think.
this, I don't know, but it's not showing.
Professor,
it's stuck on number 9.
even I can't see the slide.
Huh? Are you able to see the slides?
Even I too. The slides showing is substitute goods and weak substitutes.
Yes, it's true. It's complement goods now, isn't it? You are seeing. I did this. I presented this. You are seeing this. Is it changing slowly, or shall I have to go to the old? Shall I have to go to the old version, small one? This one. It is going slowly, I think, in the larger one, isn't it? Or it is okay? This is better?
Okay, now we are in complement goods.
It goes faster now. Substitute, complement, it goes faster, isn't it? This is better. You want me to let it like this? Tell me.
Oh, is okay, better.
Better. Okay, then you saw the examples that I have done.
Now we can see that.
Okay, that's why I didn't prefer the whole screen, because when it is large,
it was not there.
Yes, it was not moving faster, but now it's going faster, isn't it? It's okay now. Are you seeing the slides now? Do you want me to go this? Do you want me to go the example once again, or is okay? Do you want me to repeat the example?
Once again.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Okay, look, this was the example which is given. Okay, this was the example which is given. You see, if price increased from $10 to 12, the percentage change usually defined would be 12 minus 10 divided to 10 is the normal application of the elasticity formula for the coefficient. Then it is going to be 2 over 10. Then 20% is the expected changes. If at the same time the quantity demanded fell from 30 to 20, because this is the price changes, isn't it? Now we are going to employ the quantity changes. We are using, of course, the coefficient, okay? Because in coefficient, as you see, new old divided to old, okay? And the midpoint, we divide it in midpoint, we divide it, as you see, in midpoint, we divide it to new old to divide to average, which means you are going to sum new and old and divide it 2, okay, for the average, for finding the average. You will see in the example. Let's go through. This is then the coefficient that I have done. 12 minus 10 divided 10. This is the price changes. 2 minus 10 will give you the 20%, the price changes. And then we are going to estimate the quantity. The quantity is then 30 to 20 reduced. The percentage change in quantity demanded, again, using the usual definition of the percentage would be then 20 minus 30 divided to 30. Then this will then goes to minus 10 divided to 30, then is minus 33 percentage. And then when we're gonna put these two together, then we will get the coefficient elasticity, which is minus 33 divided to 20 will gives you minus 1.36 minus 1.67, which is elastic, uh, uh, as you see, demand is expected, isn't it? Because above 1 is more elastic, below 1 to 0 is inelastic. Then we go to the midpoint. In midpoint, we said midpoint formula makes only one change to the calculation of percentages. Rather than dividing by the old value of x, it divides by the average value, which means you are going to add the new to old and divide 2 for the denominator, which is x new minus x old will be divided to the x new minus x old divided 2 will give you the x average, which is the midpoint formula, where x average is the sum of the old and new values divided by 2. Okay, then let's go to the example again. Then the example is implementing this is straightforward. In our previous example, the percentage change in price calculated by the midpoint formula would be then 12 minus 10 divided to 12 plus 10 is 22 divided 2 is 11. Then 12 minus 10 is 2, and then 11 is then the denominator. Then numerator is 2 and denominator is 11. 2 over 11 is 18.2 is the price changes estimated. Now we go to the percentage change in the quantity calculated by the midpoint formula. Again, 20 minus 30 divided to 20 plus 30 divided 2, which is 25. Then the 20 minus 30 is minus 10. And the 50, which means 20 plus 30 divided 2 is 25. Then 10 plus minus 10 plus 25 will give you the minus 40 percentage in quantity changes. Now we are going to put these two together, which is 18.2 and 40 minus 40. Then we're gonna put this quantity, because delta Q over delta P will give you the midpoint elasticity. Then this will then give you minus 2.2, which is again above 2. It is roughly estimated because you're gonna take the average of these two. Then this is also elastic demand. It shows that the former and this is also parallelly estimated, which means this example has elastic demand, or the price elasticity of demand is higher. Okay, then we have here the elasticity problem on the graphical or on the figure to show you how the demand and supply position is affecting and changing the elasticity. This is the theorem of Cobham. It is very popular. It is published and estimated and introduced by the Ezekiel and Kaldor. Nicholas Kaldor. The classical paper on the Cobham theorem was published first with this Ezekiel, but it is the Kaldor's theorem. And as you see, it's like the network. It is like a spider network. Either it goes towards to the equilibrium or it moves away from the equilibrium. And this is only dependent to the position of the supply and demand. How it is happens and how it is affecting and changing the supply and demand, let's see. The Cobham theorem was named by the Hungarian-born economist Nicholas Kaldor, and the Cobham theorem stems from a simple dynamic model of cyclical demand, which involves time lag, which means you are going to slow down it by the time when you are taking the former period of the times, and it is affecting and changing the let's say deviation of this spider network. Between the response of production and the change in the prices is very heavily affected by the position of the supply and demand, of course, and this is mostly observed in the agricultural sector, because in agricultural sector every seasonal deviation is affected from the former period or former seasonal activities. Therefore, this is very easy to understand when you are concentrating to the agricultural foodstuffs. It is assumed that the demand for a good is decreasing function of its current prices, as it is normal, because if the demand for good is decreasing function of the current prices, this means you are going to affect very heavily the demand because of the price in the market. And the supply is the function of the former year, because the former year planting or harvest is affecting and changing this supply side, because in one period, if the supply is less, then the next period, the supply is very heavily affected and becomes enlarged, because the farmers and the producers heavily dependent to this, let's say, speculative activities, which is increasing and enlarging in one period the amount of the production, and in the other period, if it is too much, then it is reducing the planting, because the abundant product in the market will cause decreasing the prices, and mostly the farmers and the producers don't like lower prices, and this is then why the supply is the last year, is the function of the last year or former year prices. Especially this has happened, as I said to you, in the agriculture, because in agricultural sector, the agricultural products are very easily spoiled or broken, and it is also heavily affected from this deviation, the price and supply and demand position, because of this that I have explained to you, whether the supply is less for one semester and then larger in the next, and then again less large, it goes like this. And the price, of course, if there is less, then the price go up for the current demand, and if it is less, then it is, if it is more, sorry, then it is going down. Like in the summer period, the watermelon is abundantly produced and the price go down or fall down, and in winter it goes up. If any changes in the conditions of demand and or supply occur, then this will lead to changes in this equilibrium values of price and quantity. If difference in price changes between first year product prices, which is P0, P1, you will see in the following slides the position of the graph, and second year product prices P0, P2 is increasingly decreased, then output and price tend to approach to the equilibrium position. This has also meant that the slope of the demand curve is smaller than the slope of the supply curve. And when it is so, what does it mean? We will see, as I mentioned to you, if this supply is more elastic, as I mentioned to you, this is not good, because elastic supply has meant you are going to move away from the equilibrium, and if the demand is more elastic, you are approaching to the equilibrium. You will see how it is realized. Okay. In the opposite case, if the supply curve is more elastic than the demand curve, absolute slope of supply curve is less than demand curve now, and the output and the price tend to move further away from the equilibrium position. And therefore, the slope of the demand curve is expected to be greater than the slope of the supply curve, which means the price and the output tend to move further towards to the equilibrium position. This is how it is. And this is the, of course, graphical illustration. On the figure 1.1, demand is price elastic. As you see, when the demand is more flat to the equilibrium, so to the x-axis, the price changes bring the market to the equilibrium. You can try it. You put the supply curve more elastic, and put the demand curve more elastic, which means more horizontal, more flatter, and put the supply curve a little bit vertical, and try to move from supply to demand. You will see you will approaching to the equilibrium. This is because demand is more elastic. And if the supply is more elastic, which means supply curve is more flatter and becomes horizontal, approaching to the x-axis, and then demand is more vertical, more stepper, then this will then move the deviation of the price changes away from the equilibrium. If supply and demand similarly, equally having the elasticity, then this will then bring the market to the, let's say, steady position. There is a equilibrium market structure. It is going up and down, and the market is not changing very easily. As it is indicated here, we are having here this cross price elasticity of demand for cars, and we will see how it is affecting and changing it. As you see, the Sentra, Escort, LS, and let's say BMW 735 injection is given here. The Sentra to Sentra, the elasticity is very high. As you see, Escort to Sentra elasticity is very low. The last, let's say, wagon elasticity is again almost zero, and for the BMW is again zero because it is somehow rigid or somehow is more preferred. And when you go to concentrate to the Escort, to the Sentra, you see there is a little bit between 0 and 1. And when Escort to Escort, there is also no strong elasticity. There is somehow elastic preferences between the Escorts. Everybody change, let's say, from Fiesta to Focus, from Focus to Escort. It depends easily. You can change it. If it is Mercedes, you have more, let's say, flexible preferences. But if it is going to change from Mercedes to Sentra or Escort to others, there is, of course, problem. This is how it is realized. And similarly for the BMW and for the Sentra, there is also almost zero, as I have done in the in the first column that I have mentioned. And between these two, let's say BMW, there is high elasticity, which means either or is no problem, because if it is above 1 is elastic, and if it is below it is inelastic. And as you see, between the similar products we have elastic demand, and between some preferences which is not good, or the quality and standard is affecting the preferences, the elasticity become a little bit rigid, which is inelastic. And Coke and Pepsi also is given here. The price, if the price elasticity of demand is affected, then there is, of course, elastic for the Coke and Pepsi together, and a cross price elasticity of demand. If one's price is going down and one's is increased, and the other ones, let's say, stay intact, then the elasticity is becoming a little bit inelastic. And if the income is affected and changed now, then the, of course, either Coke or Pepsi is also affected. And as you see, Coke elasticity is becoming a little bit preference, which means people prefer more Coke than Pepsi if the income elasticity of demand is becoming a little bit enlarged. And how to estimate demand and supply equations, we are also questioning in this chapter by using the elasticity. Of course, this will then facilitating knowledge to you before estimating elasticity. You can easily determine elasticity by using some facilities to make some acceleration or speed to your estimations, to your calculations. You may use own price elasticity and equilibrium price and quantity, and use information on past shifts of demand and supply. And you are using own price elasticity and equilibrium price and quantity. Choose a general shape for functions, the linear and constant elasticity, and estimate parameters of demand and supply using elasticity and equilibrium information, where we need information on the elasticity, price, and quantity. Let's look up this. As it is given here, then the linear demand curve is given. As you know, QD is equal to A minus BP, and B here is the slope of this curve. And as you see, the slope of this curve is delta Q over delta P, which is the part of the elasticity equation. And when you are going to estimate this, then there is no need to determine this delta Q and delta P. You can take directly the B and put into the equation for finding the elasticity. As it is given in this example, suppose P is 0.7, Q is 70, and elasticity for this equation is 0.55, which means negative elasticity, and it is rigid or it is inelastic. Demand is subjected. And when you're gonna put this to the equation for finding A and B, because we don't know A and B, and then you will use this given information and put into the equation for the elasticity, then you will find it as it is. 0.55 is the elasticity is given. Then you will put the interior or initial quantity 70 to the initial price where it is 0.7, then you will find B where it is 55. And for A, then you will then, of course, rewrite the equation by adding to the other side of the equation Q plus BP, then will gives you the A. Then you are going to put this all in together to find the A. Then A is then again when you're going to estimate Q is 70 plus 55 is the B, and 0.7 is the price, then initial price. Then you will then have here the A, which is 108.5. Then the equation will be then estimated. QD is 108.5, which is the constant or coefficient, minus 55 is the, of course, slope of this curve. As I have mentioned to you, it is given. If you don't have, you can put the B easily to find it. Then P is the price for the initial. Then example for the constant elastic demand curve for finding coefficients. Suppose demand is QD is a power of epsilon or elasticity, which is the power of, and it is also indicate the elasticity. Suppose again P is 0.7, Q is 70, and elasticity is minus 0.55. Again, we are going to put this equation, but now we have the power of, and you know when it is the nonlinear equation where the power of is existing, then you have the elasticity very easily estimate, because if any question or equation given to you and the power of is also there, then you are understanding this is the elasticity. You can easily estimate this. Then you will put this given information to the equation where A is the Q multiplied P is the power of elasticity. Then A, the equation which is given, is 70 multiplied 0.7 is the power of 55. Then will give you 57.53. The QD, which is the demand equation, is then given here for the coefficient 57.53. Price is the power of 0.55, which is the elasticity of this equation. Then example for the broilers is given in the example. The observed price and quantity is given 0.7 and 70, which is the former example. Then the linear demand curve is represented here, as you see, and the constant elasticity for demand curve is also given as it is a curve. And when it is crossing each other, then we have the intersection of these two for estimating the elasticity. And when we use information on past shifts of demand and supply, a shift in the supply curve reveals the slope of the demand curve. Shift in the demand curve reveals the slope of the supply curve, as I mentioned to you. Shift in the supply curve is given all equilibrium points P1 and Q1. New equilibrium point is the P2 and Q2. Then you're going to subtract and substitute to the equation for finding the expected B, where it is the slope. Therefore, QD is A minus BP. B is the slope and is also part of the, or the component of the elasticity, which is given here, you will put and find the A also by adding to the other side of the equation, by removing BP to the other side of the equation, to the left side of the equation. Then you will have A as Q minus, or Q1 minus B E1. Then the identifying demand by a shift in supply is as given. The old supply and new supply is dependent to the price changes as it is given here. The price going up to P2, as you see, the quantity demanded is reduced for the consumers. And this technique only works if the curve we want to estimate stays constant. Example, shift in supply curve, we require that the demand curve does not shift, supposed to be. And let's try it. As you see, if the demand curve is not changing and affecting and changing, then the equilibrium price is shifted up. But as you see, it is somehow on the same quantity. This is not affecting and changing the quantity demanded now, because in the former example, as you see, the demand is reduced, but now, as it is mentioned here, not change. You see, the quantity stay intact, but the price change because demand is affected from this new supply and becomes to the similar position. Summarizing this, first example of the simple microeconomic model of supply and demand is given here, two equations and the equilibrium conditions, elasticity as a way of characterizing demand and supply, and elasticity changes as market definition changes, commodity geography, and time. And elasticity, a very general concept, back of the envelope calculations, estimating demand and supply from own price, elasticity, and equilibrium price and quantity, estimating demand and supply from information on past shifts, assuming that only a single curve shifts at a time. This was the presentation for the elasticity. Next lecture, we will go to the complements and implement inferior goods, and also we will estimating the market structure by using this differentiation and by affecting and changing the given so-called goods and some other inferior goods, luxurious goods impact to the market structure. And step by step, we will then go to the utility function also and the consumer price and consumer equilibrium in the market with this elasticity will be introduced you by using these utility functions and showing how it is affecting and changing the indifference curve, and also on the budget curve, on the budget line, or on the budget let's say equation, how it is going to be affected, whether the income changes or the price changes becoming important and affecting and changing the market structure, and how it is affecting and changing the market structure will be introduced to you. But today, I think we will stop here. You absorb this supply a little bit more, and then I will go to a little bit more to your understanding for your next lecture. If you have any question, please ask me. If you don't, then I will stop here, because if I'm going to start the next, it will be too much for you for today. I think this is enough for today. Next lecture, I will give you, as I said to you, a little bit more comprehensively with all other aspects. You have any question, please? Abdul Fatih, Ali, Elizabeth, and Alec.
No, sir. Just regarding the slides, will you upload it in queues or my?
Yeah. I will upload to the queues, and videos will be in Teams, but this is not always available, I think, to download and watch. I am also uploading to the YouTube, and in YouTube you are also watching in the micro as a first lesson, second lesson, third lesson. It goes like this. Then you can watch and get these let's say videos as a revision. Okay, then thank you very much for you attending my class. Next lecture we will be together on Friday at 7:30 or around 7:40. Yes, please, because I have before advanced economy, and I am a little bit time off to get rest. Yes, please.
I'm sorry, Professor, could you add me please to the attendance list because I'm unfortunately missed the beginning of class due to problem with connection.
Yeah. I will upload the videos, as I said to you, and I will upload the PowerPoints, and you will definitely not missing any classes, and the attendance is also will not be a problem to you. Don't worry, I will upload you.
Okay, thank
At
you.
the end, before the exam, I will manage this. Don't worry. But your attendance is also desired because all I cannot support. You must at least attend the rest. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, then have a nice weekend. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Good night.
Good night, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye.